What's up, guys? We're going to talk about Gordon Ryan and Dorian Oliveras and how Gordon uses what we would call old man jiu-jitsu in order to maintain a superior connection to his opponent, who is, frankly, a way better athlete than him and a lot younger, much better in a scramble, and has athleticism on his side. So this is a great series if you're an older grappler to watch, and we're going to see how Gordon is able to keep one step ahead of such a young, talented athlete here. For you guys who don't know, this is Dorian Oliveras on top. He won ADCC East Coast Trials in 2023. Can't remember exactly the year, but he just took everybody by storm. He's like maybe 20 years old, crazy talented wrestler. Was super hard for anybody playing guard to connect to at the legs, and basically just outworked all of his opponents. His gas tank is insane. So this is a really good clip to look at and study if you want to see how somebody without these athletic attributes really slows down a player like this, and through superior connection can actually beat them very well. So we'll start a little bit before the series I want to show, but this is also really good stuff. Gordon is letting Dorian work rounds right now, and they're kind of starting from this side crucifix position where Dorian's in a crucifix on top and Gordon is staying relaxed. Dorian is going to move to a north-south position, and Gordon is going to do a really good job of getting out of it, and I'll show you guys kind of how that works. So as they're working right now, Gordon is hiding this arm so that Dorian can't reach and take it for a Kimura, which he just tried to do, but it's behind his head, so it's difficult to grab right there. He can't seem to actually get under the elbow and turn into a Kimura for anything like that. So he's getting frustrated, and he tries to move to a side control and then tries to move to the hips to get into a north-south. So right here, once he gets into this north-south, I want to rewind this. He gets into this north-south. He's got a double unders position with his arms. So what I mean by double unders is that both of Dorian's elbows are inside of Gordon's elbows. Gordon's elbows right here and here. Dorian's are lower and at Gordon's hips. So what Gordon's going to do is take double hand posts on Dorian's hips right here, and then he's going to start penduluming out with his legs sideways, both ways, both directions. He's trying to get some momentum so that he can turn this north-south pin into more of a side control configuration. So right now, Dorian and Gordon are parallel. You can see they're in one line. Gordon is going to use these thumb posts and hand posts on the hips to move his body out to a more predominantly side control configuration. So they're going to be perpendicular. Gordon's legs would be over here and his head over here, or vice versa, instead of in this parallel position. And what that's going to do, right here you can see him penduluming. He turns, so now Dorian has grips that are very well suited for a north-south position, but not suited at all for the position that Gordon just forced, which is north-south. He needs to get control over Gordon's head and shoulders now that they're in more of a north-south configuration. Which you can see here, this arm, he's going to take over the top and try to move it to an underhook and a crossface. And as he does that, Gordon is going to bring his right arm over as an underhook because it leaves space. Right here, he tries to switch, and now there's not much connection because he doesn't actually have an underhook here. And Gordon bumps him forward with his knee, so he's out of position a little bit more, and he shoots his underhook in right there. It's beautiful. Really nice series. Let's watch this again. So he moves to a north-south. Gordon pushes his hands into the hips to get some extension, turns it into a side control. Dorian tries to take an underhook. Gordon bumps him and gets his own underhook and captures the leg here. So this is the series I really want to go over once he captures the leg and has an underhook. This is called a lower leg shift sweep. Some people call this coyote half guard, I think. I've never really used that term, but what he's doing is he's getting up into a dogfight, basically. And Dorian has to put in a whizzer, because if he doesn't, Gordon will take his back, right? And so now Gordon has one of Dorian's legs between his, and they're both on their knees. So they're in a wrestling exchange, which makes this even crazier because Dorian is a super talented wrestler, right? This is not a position like, I'm not breaking down how Gordon leg locked Dorian, right? That would be kind of ridiculous because obviously Gordon is so much more experienced than something like that. But this dogfight position is such a great showcase of how talented Gordon is, because even with an opponent that is so good at wrestling and scrambles, and this is a position that is really suitable to both of those things, Gordon still just outclasses this guy. And, I mean, Dorian wouldn't even be surprised by that. Obviously, he knows how good he is, so I'm not saying anything new here, but just want to point that out. So Gordon gets up into this dogfight position, and what happens is Dorian is starting to push him down, and he wants to whizzer Gordon around with this inside leg. So right now, Dorian has an overhook, which you guys can't quite see in this angle, but he has an overhook, and he's going to use his leg to try to push Gordon to the floor. He's trying to overhook Gordon's upper body to the floor. You can see Gordon's upper body is angled towards the floor, and he wants to basically flip Gordon onto his back again. Gordon sees this, and what he's going to try to do is use a torquing of this inside leg with his knee and reach under with his left hand to grab Dorian's outside knee and roll him through. Just see right here, right there. He tried to roll him through. He missed the leg because Dorian sprawls. But not all's lost. He still has a connection over this leg, and he still has his underhook. So he just comes back up. This is a great series because you can play it over and over, just like he's about to do. So he comes up, Dorian tries to force him back to the floor, and Gordon tries to take that momentum and roll through. It didn't work because Dorian sprawled. As you can see, we'll watch it slow one more time. Dorian sprawls, so he doesn't get the connection he wanted. He goes back to the leg. And guys, one thing I want to point out here, in order to come up to dogfight repeatedly, Gordon does a great job of never giving Dorian an underhook that's easily whizzered, right? And what I mean by that is it's never perpendicular across the back, right? He's down low at the thigh, or he's really high up at Dorian's traps with his arm. And that makes it so that Dorian's whizzer is really nullified, and it feels much, much weaker. You guys should try that out in the gym. Put your arm completely across someone's back and let them whizzer you. Your face will go straight into the mat. But if you take it down to the thigh or all the way up to the trap, it's severely diminished. So he comes back up. He's hooking at the leg right here. This is super important as well. So this is the position we're really looking at. He goes into this hook on the leg, and what he's going to do is pull his right leg back. He's going to do a back heel, and he's going to try to torque Dorian's left leg out to the left. So it's really uncomfortable and straining on Dorian's inside knee here. And he holds on to this leg so that Dorian doesn't backstep into a cross ashi. So he's coming back up. And Dorian actually tries to make sure that he doesn't get his knee stuck in the pocket here where he can start to get torqued on that leg. So he tries to hide it. And while that happens, he brings his knee up onto Gordon's hip. This is a problem for Gordon if he allows this knee to go to the other side, because then he'd be in basically like a 3/4 mount, right? So what Gordon does to stop this is he takes a back heel, and this is a great move, guys. This is called a dog bar. I love this knee bar here. He puts pressure on the knee in order to facilitate Dorian choosing to go back and put his knee on the floor, which is what Gordon wants, right? So he's putting pressure on the knee. Right here, there's severe pressure on the knee. It probably feels like Dorian's getting knee barred at this point. If he has two choices. He could relieve the pressure by pointing his knee back down to the floor inside this hip pocket of Gordon's, or he can concede top and he'll fall to his left. But Gordon will be in like an over-under position on top, and Dorian doesn't like being on bottom, so he's not going to do that. So what he does instead is he concedes this knee back down to the floor. And now Gordon has the original shape he wanted, which is this back heeling of the lower leg, the knee caught into the hip pocket, and Gordon having an underhook. And he'll go back to the leg as well. So now that we're in this position, again, they're fighting. Gordon decides to come up again. He's getting pushed back down by the whizzer, so he goes back down low, so he loses some of that pressure, so he can try to come back up and fight his way back up into the dogfight. Now something happens here where Dorian grabs his head, and this is something that a lot of guys get worried about playing in this position, but it's really, really difficult for your opponent to actually commit to your head as long as you have their leg, because you can off-balance them severely by the fact that you have their leg, and if they want to stay standing or stay on top, they have to post a hand out and let go of that head, which is what happens here. So you see as Gordon comes up, he has to post his hand back out again so that he can wrestle. And now we're back into the dogfight position. Once we're in the dogfight position, this is a great opportunity if your opponent is up off of one knee like this, so he's off both legs. Gordon can try to pull his right knee out and do what's called like a Casoto hook, where he's going to basically pull Dorian to this hip and onto the floor in a circular motion. But what he looks to opt to do instead is turn his inside hip into Dorian. You can see this. It makes it so that Dorian doesn't have much of a, right there. He knee slid in and turned his hip into Dorian. That makes it so that Dorian doesn't have much of a whizzer. If Dorian is allowed to stay just basically in alignment like he likes, where they're both just facing forward and both their hips are facing the same exact direction, Dorian can use this inside leg to lift Gordon's hips up and take him over. But because of the fact that Gordon is switching into this weird cockeyed position like this, where he's moving his hip and basically facing away from Dorian, he's facing all the way towards this guy basically with his hips, it makes it really, really hard for Dorian to actually get any lift with that leg. And Gordon is going to basically use his left arm and pull that leg out and over to this hip. So it's on the outside. So you can start moving to shelving the leg and get a single leg and start wrestling on Dorian. Another thing to note here is that Gordon's arm will frequently move up to the traps. So like we talked about, it doesn't need to be low towards the legs all the time. It can also be up towards the traps to diminish that whizzer. So you'll see it move up again. Yep, right here. He's making it really difficult for Dorian to use any kind of power. With both of these things combined, if you guys can get really good at just coming up into dogfight, turning your hips away from the person and bringing your arm high, I promise you will have so much success in this position because it's so difficult for them to whizzer you back down onto your face and also to kick you and lift your hips when you're turned that way and your arm is high and out of the position they want to whizzer. So we're in this position. He's sliding even further in, and you can see he grabbed that foot with his left hand. He's starting to lift it to the outside, and he shelves it onto his ribs. And now Dorian has to basically flee because he's in a wrestling scenario, and Gordon was going to lift that leg up into a high single leg. So let's watch this again, guys, from the top. Dorian switches to the north-south. Gordon goes to double hand posts on the hips, starts moving on to a side control. Dorian has to adjust, and Gordon takes advantage of the space that was created. Hooks this leg. He tries to roll through. He's sprawled, so it didn't work. And now Dorian's trying to beat the knee position by getting it over to the opposite hip, so Gordon puts him into a knee bar. He goes back down into the position Gordon wanted. Gordon comes back up to a dogfight. His hand is low, so he's not getting whizzered. He's still building up. And now they're back into that position where he's turning his hips in, and it's so hard for Dorian to whizzer him anymore. But he's really well connected as well. He's going to take his left arm and pull that foot up onto his hip and go into a wrestling scenario where Dorian basically has to bail. One more time. Grabbing this so he doesn't backstep. Underhook is in place, and he's torquing the knee. This is amazing connection for a wrestler. Guys, if you have a wrestler in the gym that you're having a hard time dealing with because they move so quick and you just feel like you get exhausted trying to follow them in guard retention, this position is your bread and butter. So he's starting to put knee bar pressure. If Dorian just stayed here, he'd probably actually break him in this position. So he moves his knee back down. And now, if Gordon wanted, he could just keep building his hips into him, like sliding along the floor onto his back. And while he's holding this leg, he can just tip Dorian over. You guys have probably seen that sweep. So Dorian understands this, tries to stay away from him with his leg, and this allows Gordon to come up. He's having a hard time coming up because Dorian's whizzering him, so he goes back down to the thigh, so it's easier. And again, Dorian's trying to whizzer him, so he slides his hip into Dorian, and his arm is really high, making it difficult for Dorian to do really anything. And he's still well connected. So he pulls that knee out to his outside hip and steps it up into the shelf position. And now they're back into their wrestling scramble. So guys, if you are an older athlete and you're having trouble with younger guys in the gym, this is an amazing series to play. I would highly recommend getting good at this half guard. I guess some people call it coyote half guard. I call it a lower leg shift sweep because they're holding onto the lower leg here. But he's moving between roll through sweeps, lower leg shift sweeps, where he's threatening knee bars as well to make sure that the knee goes in the proper place, and he's coming up for dogfights. So this trilemma of rolling through, sweeping, and wrestling up is really, really hard to deal with and gives you superior connection to a younger, more spry, more athletic, more explosive, more scramble-prone opponent. So guys, if you guys want any more tips on how to do this, I have a couple videos that I will put at the end screen here, and you guys should check them out if you guys want to know how to do any of these series. I've got a couple videos on it, on getting out of north-south and how to use this lower leg shift series. So give them a look, and I'll see you guys on the mats. Thanks. This is Eddie with Crash and Flow BJJ.